It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Now time for some interactive fun. Also, I'm very sorry for me attempting to sing Boyz II Men. I think it's called End of the Road, that song. Whatever. But real quick, I'm still Kirk. This is still Dumb Test Late. But if you can't tell, you probably can't by that bad singing in the beginning. I'm making this episode not to end the podcast. I'm not ending the podcast. I'm ending season 2 in the current long form stories ideas I was working on for season 2. Those were the Cake and redo idea and also my Insecta idea. I felt like they were getting too long in the tooth and I wasn't really adding much to it enough in time where I had like the creative juices flowing and I was doing more to the story. I felt like I was just rehashing old ideas and thinking smaller increments. And as an audio form, I probably needed to move on from it. I needed to cut where I had, not get rid of those ideas, but as this podcast is an audio form, as a story creation form, I needed to end them. Like I said, they were getting long in the tooth. And as my favorite listener pointed out, that they were kind of getting tired of one of the characters, which is probably based on the fact that I wasn't really doing anything new with that character. The character was just hanging around. And when you don't see the characters building up or being turned into a hero, they kind of can get annoying. But yeah, that kind of is what the initial idea that spurred me to end season 2 with the end of those story creations. As far as this audio format, I think what I'm going to do is just keep those off of the audio format of these podcasts as episodes and just as a visual and a written formula on the website dumbtestlate.com. If you want to check that out, I'm going to create sections and pages just for those ideas. And like I said before, I was working on scripts for the cake idea, and the Insecta idea was more going towards being a comic book. So maybe there'll be some way I can figure out how to create a comic book. There's got to be a YouTube video on the easy way to create a comic book. Maybe I could do like a quick storyboard with my terrible talent in art. But I'll figure out something and I'll just keep it on that website for now until I have an epiphany later on and it pops up and I have to put it in an episode. But what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to end season 2 with those ideas. And then my next episode, hopefully, is going to come out. So I'm going to try to do it this week. I have some time this week. Season 3, I'm going to start out with a whole new idea. I have a bunch of ideas that I was putting on the back burner. I was just getting, the one-liners out, the elevator pitches of what these ideas were going to be. And I just had them sitting on a list as, next ideas. But it's that great fear as being a writer, being a creator. It came from Big Magic, the book Big Magic by Melissa Gilbert or Elizabeth Gilbert. I think it's Elizabeth. I always mess her name up. The one who did Eat, Pray, Love. But she had this idea in one of her books called, Big Magic, where if you have an idea, if you're a writer or something like that, and you have an idea and you don't do anything with it, you just have that idea, but you don't build upon it, you don't actually see it through, you kind of put it out in this creative ether space. And somebody else is going to grab it because you didn't do anything with it. You just put the idea out there. You didn't cultivate it. You didn't make it your own. Somebody else is going to grab it because it's out there in the creative ether space. And that's always my biggest fear as a creator, that something I get excited about and try to do and think it's new, it's already been done. That happened very recently. I think the first episode of season 2 I did was my Shakespeare idea. It was called the 80 or the 88 or something like that. It was based on all the different spellings of Shakespeare's name. And I had a theory. I was going on the theory. Someone else came up with the theory a long time ago that Shakespeare was not just one person. It was multiple writers. It was like a writing troupe or something like that. Or it was a name that was used by different writers. And I came up with the idea that there will be this stage play with a constant rotating cast of improvised Shakespeare play, but it would be the same players, the same actors, but who would be a group of Shakespeare writers would change. And recently I got into listening to the amazing podcast, Hello from the Magic Tavern, which is based on people who do improvisation in Chicago. And one of the episodes I was listening to, they gave it's been out for a while. It was an ad for Improvised Shakespeare Company, which is a real thing in Chicago and LA that's been going on since 2005. So I was like, oh, I had my quote unquote Bob's Burgers wine shoe moment where Linda thought she had a great idea for, display thing with displaying wine bottles and shoes. And it was an old idea. But an idea I thought I had, but I only did one episode of this podcast on the Improvised Shakespeare. There's been already a long running Improvised Shakespeare company, which is amazing. Maybe one day I'll go see it if I end up in Chicago and LA at some point in life. It'd be probably fun to see. But yeah, like I said, that's one of my biggest fears of like, you do something, get really excited about it, and somebody's been doing it forever and probably way better than you. But like I said, I have my next ideas. So to recap, okay, first the cake story, the Cake and 2 redo. Early on in this podcast, I had the original idea when somebody mentioned to me, they were trying to say you can't have your cake and eat it too, something like that, whatever the original saying is, but they said it wrong and said, eat your cake in 2. And then I made it into a romantic comedy scene with the help of AI. Then I did it, turned into a long form, what became a story, about this couple. They had a bakery together, but then they were in a relationship and there was a reality show being filmed at the same time. And then their relationship fell out with a younger character being named Eldon. That was our hero of the story. And his villain is the opposite person. He was in a relationship with Andre, was much older than him, but taking advantage of him and taking credit for all his work. And Eldon goes out on his own and has to basically save his own day. He has to hit rock bottom as a hero and then be built up. But also I put the twist in that when he finds a new love interest, that he has this fear of he's becoming the devil that he saw in Andre, his past partner. When Eldon, who I'm talking about right now, sees the power, him getting power from getting recognition and confidence, that he takes it too far. So he, as the hero, has to watch himself hit rock bottom, be tempted by turning into a villain, resist that, and then win the love interest in the end. And also the reality show contest. That's how the story would go. With my second long-running idea I had for season 2 was the Insecta one. It started out with a character that was a shaman, and that through, a series of events, it was all this backstory with the Mothman being kind of the guide of the story and helping. My character's name was Cole, who was a resistant shaman who didn't want to be a shaman or didn't know they were a shaman. And the insect world being kind of this medium between the different dimensions that's going on. Spoiler, they're different dimensions than what's going on Earth. And Cole has this power of sight that they can see the different dimensions, but they kind of resist it. And the insect world is kind of the one that shows them, that gives them the sight and guides them. Also with the Mothman is this entity built up of many insect spiritual, entities to build this bigger Mothman. My character Cole is going to be, the conflict is, there's this whole past with Mesopotamian gods Nergal and Eshkagol, who were kind of in a relationship and rulers in the underworld, but they have conflict of their own. They want to rule by themselves, so they want to take back over Earth and have the older Mesopotamian gods rule again. And the only way they can do that is by tempting Cole. Nergal is the god of kind of plagues. Eshkagol, the female god, is the god of, or goddess, I should say, of the underworld. And there's this whole backstory between them. But what they do individually is trying to tempt Cole to their side, because Cole has this power they don't know about, but these old Mesopotamian gods do. So they're trying to use Cole's untapped power for each of their own reasons, whatever, if they're good or bad. Cole doesn't really know. But then I'm 100% not sure how I ended it. I think, as I said, this was going to be more of a comic book with shorter stories and more serialized. So I would say like the first because comic books usually are like 4 or 6 books, like when they start out with. So I would say like this first part is setting up the world and You show how Cole is being guided by the insect world, which is part of the spiritual world, and the Mothman, who they interact with. But you see the temptation from both of these older gods, and Cole has to make the decision of who they're going to support, if they support neither of them, or maybe Cole figures out that as a shaman, they could be more powerful on their own and defeat these gods and take over their own reign. So, like I said, that I'm going to end with season 2 as far as creating it through this audio podcast format, and I'm just going to keep it more on the website. So you want to see more of that growth of those stories, check out my website, dumbtesslate.com. I also had an Instagram, but for some reason my Instagram got banned, and I don't know why. I had a Dumb Tesslate Instagram where I was posting like stories and pics, like AI created visuals to go along with this podcast. And the ideas I had, for some reason, it got banned. I don't know why. Maybe somebody's hating on like AI art and sending a complaint, but I didn't have anything offensive or anything like that, or that went against guidelines, because AI stuff is okay on Instagram. I don't know. That's life. But yeah, I wanted to get this episode out to say I'm not ending the podcast. I really like doing this podcast. I love being creative, and I love creating and getting these random ideas and filling out more, going and looking at backstories. And like, this has led me down the path of wanting to learn how to write scripts and finding easy ways to do that. And now being a comic book collector, because there's all these great inspirations and stories in comic books. And I love that writing format. There's also a new format I want to kind of touch on with the next couple of stories. Is like, as a pulp writer, is like old pulp magazines. They were like serialized in small stories and written really fast in the 60s and 70s. That's something I kind of want to touch on, but that'll be more with newer ideas. So yeah. Yeah. Like I said again, the podcast is not ending. I'm just ending season 2. On to season 3. On to new ideas. I don't know if all of the ideas I have about 5 or 6 ideas that are like in the pot waiting to go. I don't know if they're going to be long form as like I did with the Cake and Insecta story. Hopefully, because I kind of like doing that. Make them serialized stories and build out characters and build out plots and, side characters and all that stuff. That's really enjoyable. Doing research on stuff, watching movies and books and reading books and comics and listening to stuff to get inspiration. It's been really good. But yeah, thanks for sticking it out through the Cake and Insecta stories. You will hear from me soon. I will do a new episode soon this week. I'm recording this episode on Monday. It's a short one. I just wanted to, because I haven't recorded one in a little while, but like I said, it was getting long in the tooth. And when that happens, you kind of struggle to get the creative juices flowing. That's why I had to make that decision to end it here and start something new and kind of put it on the website. That means I had to push myself to keep updating the website, which is good. You need motivation to push yourself to be creative. But yeah, like I said 1,000 times before, thanks for listening. I'm still Kirk. Season 2 is ending, but season 3 is on the way. And there's still Dumb Tesslate. Sorry if you are really enjoying Cake, but check it out on the website, and Insecta too. But thanks for listening. You'll catch me soon on the next one. Bye-bye.